Hello, everybody. Welcome to Elite Weather Forecasting. I am Mr. G, your weather forecaster. Today, I am a meteorology student at Mississippi State University online, and I'm here with you guys as often as I can with these weather forecast videos as I can practice the craft and my presentation and work on my accuracy and everything like that. But our city of the day is a beautiful city, Denver, Colorado, the Mile High City. Yes, it's a beautiful, clear day. Look how beautiful those skies are out there in Colorado tonight, and a beautiful city there in the background. We're looking at sunny skies across most of the country. That exception has been parts of the Midwest, from the Great Lakes down to the Gulf Coast, where we have a cold front that's dissecting the country, that's moving from west to the east, but it has a large swath of rainfall and much cooler air that's progressing toward the east coast. And by the time we get to Sunday, that cold front will have swept out toward the Atlantic, and we're going to be seeing those cooler temperatures from the Midwest all the way out to the Atlantic coast. So a significant cool down is on the way. Just hang out a little bit longer if you're on the East Coast and down across the Southeast and South as well. You're going to also see those temperatures come down, but not as much as you're going to see over the Great Lakes in the upper Midwest. You're going to be much more cooler with temperatures in the 40s. And some of you won't even get out of the 30s. It's going to be very cool and even cold enough to snow across some location. We've been seeing snow across the Rockies and in the Pacific Northwest as well. But as that system moves to the east, in the west, we're going to see a high amplitude ridge of high pressure move on shore off of the Pacific. So we're going to see things start to warm up in the Pacific Northwest and along the immediate west coast, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and San Diego. We're going to see those temperatures warm back up into the 70s as we get into the weekend and next week. So let's get on with the rest of the forecast as we talk about El Nino to get things started. So now, as we cover the rest of the weather forecast for the lower 48, let's talk about the El Nino event that's developing for this winter. And we are already seeing that signal there for a very strong El Nino right in here. This is where we look to see those El Nino conditions. The region 3.3 and 3.4 of the Nino there along the equator. We're seeing those water temperatures as high as 4.4 degrees Celsius above the seasonal average. So very warm water. This is a significant El Nino event that's shaping up and is still strengthening to this day. And look how far out these warmer than average water temperatures extend out to the central Pacific. So a very strong El Nino that is going to have significant impacts on the weather across the world. So you're going to see a lot of flooding down there in Ecuador and Peru. And we're going to see a lot of drought conditions in Africa and Australia as well. We're going to see drought conditions across Australia and New Zealand, something that typically happens with El Nino because the waters over the western Pacific are cooler now because that pool of warm water that's over the eastern Pacific is typically over the western Pacific, but that warm waters has shifted to the east, so we're going to be seeing dry weather across Australia, New Zealand, and the South Pacific there. So that's one of the more significant negative impacts of El Nino. So that is not going to be a pleasant event for the folks down in Australia and in the South Pacific. So here we are, the what we're going to see as far as the general effects of El Nino. And one thing El Nino does is it energizes the southern jet stream. So we're going to have a very strong and prominent southern jet stream that's going to bring a lot of Pacific storms. The Pineapple Express we typically see, and we're going to see that Pineapple Express aim low instead of going in the Pacific Northwest like we see it with La Nina. That is going to be primarily centered at Southern California, the desert Southwest, the Mexican border, the Gulf Coast, and the southeast. So we're going to see that parade of storms making a more southerly track, coming more directly from out to sea than going up into, say, the Aleutian, the Bay of Alaska. That's where we typically see low pressure in that area in the non-Nino, the neutral seasons. But so we're going to see like low pressure centers like this take a more southerly track and affect Southern California with a normal above average rainfall along the southwest and cooler weather. We're going to see a lot of snow across states like Texas and even into the south. Snow, a lot of instances of freezing rain. It's not going to be a pleasant winter if you're in the Appalachians. So if you're in the Carolinas, Georgia, if you are along the Appalachian Mountain Range, I typically call that region my freezing rain zone. And we're going to see a very active freezing rain zone because we often have areas where cold air is often trapped along the Appalachian Mountain Range and the Atlantic coast. And there's often a pool of cold air that's trapped by warmer air aloft. And that often leads to freezing rain events across the Ohio Valley, down through Kentucky, Tennessee, and we're going to also be seeing that across parts of Mississippi, northern Alabama, and northern Louisiana. So a lot of situations to watch out for freezing rain. But if you're across the north, the polar jet stream is going to be bumped way up there to northern Canada and the northern territories. So warmer than average air will settle across western and central Canada and the upper Midwest. So that's going to lead to a warmer winter for states like Minnesota, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Could see a warmer than average winter. That also includes the Dakotas, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, Washington, and Oregon will see a drier than average winter and warmer than average as well. Now, that doesn't mean you won't get snow. We won't have episodes where it's really cold. But in general, over this winter, we expect it to be warmer than average and a bit drier as well. Definitely going to be dry here across the Ohio Valley and parts of the Corn Belt, parts of the Midwest, Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, and Iowa. We're going to see a drier than average winter. So here's what we typically see during the El Ninos, and the yellow dots are basically where it's less snow, below average. The blue dots are where we typically see more snow, and this is in the climate period. We measure the climate in 30-year intervals this is 60 years? This is long. So from 1950 to 2023, this is what we've seen with the El Ninos and La Nina events. So with the El Ninos, we're seeing more snow across the central part of the country. So from the Carolinas through Kentucky, Tennessee, maybe through southern Illinois, southern Indiana, parts in Arkansas, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, Kansas, even into North Texas, we've seen more snow than average. So we're seeing less snow. Now look at the Pacific Northwest. Less snow across the northern Rockies, Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, Oregon, Washington have seen less snow. So drier across the northern tier of the country, but wetter across the south. So Southern California, all the way to Florida, along the south, expect a wetter, cooler winter. So here's what we see, the average when we have the all three scenarios, El Nino, neutral, INSO neutral, when we're not looking at El Nino or La Nina conditions, and during La Nina. So when we see La Nina, we see higher snowfall ratings across Minnesota. Last winter was La Nina. We had 90.3 inches of snow. Our average is 51 inches. So clearly, La Nina, that's the impact. We see a higher snow, and it's also colder. So very cold winter. This is when we typically see those instances where it can hit -50, -60 up in northern Minnesota. Is when we see those La Nina events, and there's more snow in the northern Rockies and the Cascades in the Pacific Northwest, and we also tend to see more snow over the Adirondacks and the eastern mountains in the Northeast and New England. So definitely going to be a different type of a flipped weather pattern this year, as we're going to see more wintry weather in the south and less in the north. So here is we get on with the rest of the forecast. Your Saturday night forecast in the Northeast. We have our storm that's working its way across the country right now. It's currently moving through the Great Lakes, extending across the Mid-South and east of Texas into Louisiana and Mississippi, seeing those rain showers tonight. But as we get into Saturday, those areas of low pressure is going to be making its way to the Northeast. But we also have the remnants of Tropical Storm Felipe that's going to be just off the coast of New England and Nova Scotia. So this is going to be headed due north. So that's going to skirt Nova Scotia eventually with some rainfall and some wind. But this is no longer a tropical storm. It's has some elements of extra tropical or maritime storm. So it doesn't have all of the elements of a tropical system, but that is the remnants of a tropical system. And that is going to be taking all those rain and showers are going to get swept in to this cold front and pushed out to sea and into the North Atlantic. And that's going to take all of those showers with it and usher in that cooler, drier air. We're going to see those 30s and 40s in the overnight and some daytime highs in the 50s. So definitely a change in the guard as far as the weather is concerned this weekend. So here is the Tropical Storm Felipe forecast, and it's going to be tracking due north and into eastern Canada. Maybe it may clip Maine, the northeastern tip of Maine. So that's the remnant of Tropical Storm Felipe. Here is a rainfall forecast for tomorrow through Sunday in the Northeast. And we could pick up anywhere from a half inch of rain to maybe some areas can pick up 2 to 3 inches of rain way up there along the St. Lawrence River Valley and into Canada. So if you're in Montreal, you could pick up that 2 to 3 inches of rain. So still a wet weekend is on tap for the Northeast. And hopefully after that, we're going to see a nice period of dry weather as we head into the beginning of the upcoming work week. Here is the rain chance and high pressure, high temperatures. And I'm going to step off the camera a little bit here so that you can see that really nice there. And you're going to see that rainfall there across the Northeast in Maine, all the way down to Syracuse and New York City, where we're going to see those temperatures on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday go from the 70s down to the 60s, but we're going to see those rain showers gradually end on Saturday, and look at that sunshine starting to work its way back into the forecast by the time we get to Sunday, and those temperatures in the upper 60s. Still going to see a little bit of rain along the interior of New York State and Vermont and New Hampshire, right along the St. Lawrence River. We're going to still see some rain showers as we have a northwesterly flow over that way. So we still might see some lingering showers over that region as we head through the weekend. So not everybody is going to dry out across the Northeast. But here is the big picture that we're going to look at here. And we currently see this cooler weather here across the Rockies and the northern tier. But down here in the east and in the southeast, we're still seeing it warmer out ahead of our advancing cold front. This is a pretty significant cold front as well. It's got a lot of moisture associated with it, and we're going to see that front advance quickly to the east. So by the time we get to Sunday, that front will be pushing its way off the East Coast. And let me step off the camera again so that we can take a look at that map. And we're going to see those temperatures. We're still going to be seeing those temperatures. We saw those temperatures today in the 70s through parts of the Midwest and through on the East Coast. We still saw some 80s from the Ohio Valley down to Shenandoah and along the south. So 85, 75, see those temperatures in the 80s. But that's going to all come to an end as we get to the end and through the weekend here. But that cooler weather is on the way. Just hang tight. And so, as we get to your Saturday, we're going to start to see those 50s along the Great Lakes. So, Minneapolis, high 55, 58 in Chicago, 57 in Columbus, Ohio, 56 in Cleveland. So, we're going to see that cooler weather, especially in the Great Lakes, 67 in New York. So, you got at least the rain is going to come to an end. You need that break because it's been raining for over a week across New York. So, very wet weather across the Northeast. That's going to come to an end. You'll get some relief and you'll get some cooler, drier weather as well. We'll also see those cooler temperatures down to the south and even down to the Gulf Coast where we're going to see those 60s work its way in. Still in the 70s over Texas as we have that 74 degrees over Dallas, Texas, and that 74 in Amarillo. But you see those 60s elsewhere. So a pretty nice cool down. Gonna feel like fall for a lot of folks out there across the entire country as we move through the weekend. And again on Sunday, we're gonna see those cooler temperatures. Look at those 50s in New York now, 58 degrees, 51 in Buffalo, and we're gonna see those 40s in Marquette, 46. 59 in Minneapolis, so very fall-like temperatures out there. Very typical for this time of the year, these temperatures actually, but we've been so warm, these feel abnormal. These are actually the normal temperatures for this time of the year. 67 in Atlanta, 70 in Memphis. Warming up across Texas again as we're going to start to see warmer air start to push in from the west. So mind you, across the southern part of the country, that cool down will be very temporary. The cooler weather is going to be more persistent across the north, but if you're in Texas, those 80s will return as we have that 81 degrees for your Sunday. So late week here. So Friday, Saturday, overnight lows. We're going to see it very cold across the Midwest. The Northern Rockies, look at Montana, those lows in the 30s and 40s. We're going to see those 30s in North Dakota and South Dakota as well. And we're going to see those 40s across the Great Lakes. And we're going to see those 40s and 30s down in Colorado. So cold weather across the mountains and the plains. So very cool and chilly. Nice sleeping weather. So very comfy for sleeping and getting under the blankets or maybe getting the fire going in the fireplace, you know. Very chill. So this weekend we're going to see Saturday and Sunday, we're going to see those overnight lows in the 40s all the way up in Minneapolis and those 30s up there in Michigan and Alpena in Michigan. We're going to see those upper 30s. So cool across that the peninsula up there, and we're going to see those 40s down in Chicago, Kansas City, and we're going to see those 40s start to spread into New England and the Northeast. Saturday we go from 51 to 47 on Sunday. So enjoy those nice cool temperatures in the overnight and early mornings this weekend. It's going to be a shock to your system because you're not used to it being that cold. It's going to feel colder than it really is. So here we are as we look at our satellite photo. This is the infrared. This is that big cold front that's sweeping across the country right now. And this cold front extends all the way from Mexico. In that frontal boundary, we do have an area of low pressure right about here. And then another secondary area of low pressure up there to the north. Now this area of low pressure is going to kind of join forces with that other one as it moves towards the northeast. So that's going to also pick up the moisture from Felipe. Felipe is also going to get caught up in that flow as well. So we're going to see all of this wetness and moisture move to the east coast and usher in that cold air. But we're going to see this get entrapped in that frontal system and enhance that moisture across the northeast and New England. So here's a look at the radar right now and the surface features. We have that initial cold front and rain showers, thunderstorms down to the south. Not seeing much in the way of storms up in the north. It's really cold behind this front. We're seeing a lot of 50s working in, so it's not really providing the energy for severe weather across the north, but you will see cool, wet weather. It's going to be rainy and wet a rainy, of course it's going to be wet if it's rainy, but it's going to be rainy and cool, very cool temperatures. But we have a secondary front that's dropping down out of Canada, and that's going to reinforce that cooler weather across the north. So the Great Lakes and the northern plains and the northern Rockies are going to get a reinforcing shot of colder air with this secondary front, but it's primarily dry frontal boundary, but we will see a few showers along the Canadian border with Minnesota there but that's going to remain north of the Twin Cities, north of any significant metropolitan areas in the U.S. It could spread some moisture in the northeast as we head into the weekend, and from Toronto and Montreal and maybe even Quebec City, we can see some more moisture, and we're going to see some of that moisture Buffalo and Syracuse, Montpelier, and into New Hampshire. So that's going to bring a second shot of wet weather to the interior of New England on Saturday and Sunday. But that rain is not going to affect the Northeast because that's going to head on off towards New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. So a very detailed weather forecast for you guys. Here's our current temperatures right now. You can see it's kind of chilly across the upper Midwest and the northern plains, and across the Rockies. Look at those 30s and 40s. So it's very chilly out there right now, very fall-like. Typical temperatures for this time of the year, but still warm in the southeast. We're looking at 70s and 80s along the Gulf Coast and into the mid-Atlantic states. But it's a bit cooler in the northeast with those 60s, and we do see those 70s along the interior. So we do have some warm air advection moving into the interior of the northeast out ahead of our cold front. That cold front is pulling up warmer and moist air from the south, but once that front passes, we're going to see those winds change direction from the southwest to the northwest, and we're going to see drier and cooler weather take its place as that front passes through New England and the Adirondack mountain ranges there. Here is your weather forecast for your day tomorrow, and we're still going to see wet weather here across the upper Midwest. We're looking at about a 70% chance of rain here in Minneapolis. No thunderstorms expected, but we will see a cold rain. Could get up to about a half-inch of rain for Friday and into Saturday. We might see a few thunderstorms through parts of Wisconsin, but I don't expect us to see any thunder here in Minnesota, but we will see that second shot of cooler weather. There's our initial front moving through the northeast, headed into the St. Lawrence River Valley there in the northeast, and it's going to bring thunderstorms along the eastern seaboard where we could see some severe weather, isolated severe from the Gulf Coast and Florida all the way up to the northeast and the Canadian border. So we're going to see a wet day for your Friday across the eastern United States. And here is our extended forecast. So as we get into Saturday, you look at this big area of high pressure. I don't know how well this map is picking up on the camera. I can see it here, but the camera, I don't know how. This is a nice camera, but I don't know how these ISO bars are showing up. But right here, if you see this high pressure, this is actually a cold core high pressure zone. So this is ushering that cold air that's going to be spreading across the eastern half of the United States this weekend. This is that cooler weather, this cold dome of high pressure. Typically, we're talking about a heat dome. Well, this one is a colder core high pressure zone. And we have a little bit of warm air advection coming in off the Pacific as we have another ridge of high pressure coming in that's going to help to start to warm things up across the Pacific Northwest and the West Coast. And then as we get into Sunday, we're going to still see this high pressure sink further to the south. So more high pressure is going to build in along the Gulf Coast and East Texas. We're going to see that high pressure. But we still are dealing with a northwesterly flow here in the Northeast. As we start to see this area of low pressure, we have a big broad area of low pressure here in the Northeast. So it's going to be a little stubborn to leave the area. It's still going to put up a fight, but eventually the high pressure moving in from the west is going to push it on out the way. Here is your forecast for Sunday in the extended. There's that area of low pressure still up there in the Northeast. We have that secondary frontal storm system moving along the interior that's going to head northeast out toward the North Atlantic. But we have high pressure here over the southeastern U.S. and the high pressure over the Rockies. This is the typical continental blocking high out over the west. But here over the Pacific Northwest and the Bay of Alaska here, we have another strong storm system that's going to push some rain and clouds. And this front here, this is going to go into British Columbia and the Northern Territories and affect eastern Alaska. So this is not going to have much of an impact on the lower 48, but we do have this big area of high pressure that's going to slide in south, and that's going to help to warm things up across the western U.S. and the southwest. So as we look at your Monday into Tuesday, there again, this stubborn area of low pressure in the northeast, this is going to be mostly over Canada, but the northeast will be dry, but we can still see some wet weather here across northern Canada and the Hudson Bay and the northern areas here in New Brunswick. So excuse me. So still some cool weather across eastern Canada, cool weather across the eastern U.S. But here is that big area of high pressure starting to build in across the west. That area of low pressure in Alaska and British Columbia. So that's going to continue to make it wet weather for folks. So if you're taking a late season cruise to Alaska, you might be dealing with some choppy weather. Some parts of your cruise might get canceled because of problems with the weather. So this is why you should go in July when the weather's the best. July is the best month to go to Alaska. So that is a look at your weather forecast. I'm your meteorologist, your student meteorologist. My name is Mr. G, Dooley Godot, and I will be here with you guys once again. Maybe not tomorrow because I have a barbecue to cook on Sunday because your boy Mr. G is a pit master, and I have a church party to barbecue brisket and pulled pork for our new pastor that we just got. We are celebrating his arrival, so I have to cook some barbecue this weekend. So I have to shop for that barbecue, so I won't be able to do a video for you tomorrow. And naturally, I also always have homework. So thank you for your support, guys. The channel is slowly growing. I'm not growing as fast as some other guys like Ryan Hall. I don't know who he's paying to help his channel, but I want to get big like that maybe one day. But I actually have the knowledge. I don't know what they're doing. They're not trained meteorologists, and they're giving weather advice. I don't know. It's beyond. Somebody explain it to me. So, but anyway, thank you for watching tonight, guys. I don't want to hate. Don't hate. We don't hate here. But I will see you all in the next video, most likely on Saturday, as we do a weekend update. Well, no, not Saturday, because I'm going to be out barbecuing all day. So maybe Sunday we'll have a video for you guys to get you ready for the work week next week. Okay? Bye-bye. Nothing but love for you.